Today is primary day, and you see the 5 states voting today: Arizona, Kansas, Michigan, Missouri, and Washington. In Kansas, an important statewide vote on abortion rights, the first statewide vote since the Supreme Court threw out Roe v. Wade. We'll track that one. Some other key dynamics as we watch tonight. Remember the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Let me stretch this out a bit for you. Well, 5 of them are already out of play, if you will, in the sense that they either decided not to run or they lost their primaries. Liz Cheney's primary is later this month. David Valdeo, he advanced to the general election, but three of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump face primaries today and face candidates endorsed, vengeance, by Donald Trump. 2 out in Washington state, 1 in Michigan. So we'll know a much better tally by the end of tonight, the Trump effect, if you will, on those who voted for impeachment. Also, some other fascinating races. I mentioned that Kansas vote, the first big Roe vote. Everybody, both parties are watching that one for voter intensity. You've got some key governor's primaries. You've got some key Senate primaries. Out in the state of Arizona, it is possible for governor, for United States Senate, for Attorney General, and for Secretary of State, Republican candidates in Arizona, one of the troubling themes in this election year, election deniers.
The only way they can win is if they load up the voter rolls with dead people, people who've moved, and imaginary friends.
Somebody who is not afraid to take on the establishment crowd that tells them you need to move on. Nothing happened. It's okay. Donald Trump lost. Okay, cheating is not winning.
And what the radical left has done by hijacking our elections, cloaked it with these mail-in ballots, is wrong.
With me to share their reporting and their insights, Margaret Talev of Axios, Bloomberg's Mario Parker, and Heather Cagle of Punchbowl News. Too much to talk about, but let's just start there. I call it troubling. You still have, even after the January 6th hearings have completely exposed Trump's lie and all the people around him knowing it was a lie, you still have so many Republican candidates who either flat out repeat the 2020 lie, or even more troubling, you heard the candidate for governor in Arizona, Republican nominated for governor, if I lose, there's cheating.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty common theme in the Republican races this year. And like you said, it is very troubling given everything that we have seen from the January 6th hearings and the putting Trump at the center of all of that. And I think more troubling is the implications heading into 2024 if these governors, if these states, secretaries of states, attorney generals are elected, because they will be the ones that are overseeing the presidential election and the counting of those ballots. And I think that's what people are really worried about right now.
And if you look at the 3 candidates up today, the 3 of the 10 who voted to impeach Donald Trump, the Peter Meijer race in Michigan, Jamie Herrera Butler and Dan Newhouse out in Washington state. So we'll get a sense earlier tonight. First, you get the Michigan results there. The Michigan race, though, is also, it's important to watch, number one, does Trump get his vengeance against these 3? But the Democrats have put money into the Michigan race trying to help Meyer's opponent, because they believe if the opponent wins, that they'll have a better chance come November, to which Peter Meijer runs this ad on the radio.
Nancy Pelosi is pumping nearly $500,000 into West Michigan to buy this election for John Gibbs. Pelosi is trying to fool West Michigan conservatives into voting for Gibbs. John Gibbs, another politician bought and paid for by Nancy Pelosi.
This is not the only race where Democrats are essentially trying to put their thumb on the scale by helping a Republican. The hope is Republican wins a primary who cannot win in November. But there's a lot of Democrats debating the wisdom of this.
Yes, no, absolutely. We saw Congressman Richie Torres over the weekend saying that he was displeased with some of these maneuvers. And in some ways, it undercuts the Democrats' message that these folks are a threat to democracy. It cedes the moral high ground for Democrats. It's a risky strategy. It's a two-pronged strategy that's dependent on Democrats being able to turn out their base. And right now, that's an iffy situation.
An iffy situation. That's the modest, that's the polite way to put it. I appreciate the politeness. Let's look at the Arizona governor's race, where you have Kari Lake, who's the former TV broadcaster who essentially says she's repeating Trump, channeling Trump. If I lose, someone's cheating. And you have Karen Taylor Robson, who is the establishment candidate for governor, endorsed by the current Arizona governor, this is a Trump-Pence divide here. Where are we, if we're looking through, if we want to call it, the Republican establishment versus the Trumpy candidates, as we get deeper into the primary season? Who's winning?
Well, so far, Trump's winning, and Arizona will be a big test of that. I think Liz Cheney in a couple weeks is going to be an even bigger test. No one's even really hiding how many different money streams there are of establishment Republicans as well as Democrats, trying to lift her up. But I think when you really zoom out, like, democracy is hugely on the ballot today, and I just can't miss the juxtaposition of Nancy Pelosi landing in Taiwan, this historic and very controversial trip, and saying in her public comments, in her writings, this is about elevating a democracy, this crucial democracy. And look at the tests at home on the ballot. And this is not about partisanship. This really is about what does American democracy mean and what kind of candidates are being nominated to roles where they could have pivotal decision making over the integrity of elections.
Right, and I mentioned just about, it's a possibility that Republicans in Arizona will have a statewide slate of people who are election denied.
I do think, ironically, that may make it a little bit, that could hurt Republicans' chances on the pivotal Senate seat in Arizona. Really, Mark Kelly, it could all come down to who controls the Senate. That race will be so pivotal. And if Arizona gets a slate of Trump-backed candidates, that could, ironically, have the effect of helping Mark Kelly's chances of holding on to that seat. But again, that's a real high-stakes gamble for both parties.
Right, and again, Arizona will be crucial not only this year, but crucial again in 2024. And you have the same thing. We can show you the Republican candidates for Michigan governor. Trump very belatedly endorsed Tudor Dixon. She's the candidate you see on the left. You have Ryan Kelly there as well, who's here on January 6th in Washington, D.C. Again, you have in a major state in the middle of America, critical this year, critical again in 2024. Election lies are still a dominant theme.
Yes, absolutely. And this race is really interesting. I think this race is probably, in my mind, the most important for Trump and in a lot of ways Democrats today, because Michigan is such a pivotal state in 2024. You need it to win the White House. And so I think what we saw here was Trump and the DeVos family. Betsy DeVos resigned after January 6th, famously. They have been at war with each other in so many other races in Michigan up and down the ballot. And she wrote him this letter that basically made no mention of January 6th and was like, you should endorse this candidate. She is the only one who can take on Democrats and win. And they came together on this race. So it's just such an interesting dynamic in that state. But on the Democratic side, if they cannot win the governorship, I mean, what does that say about their chances for 2024 too? Both parties have a lot of stakes here.
Right, and if we could just put up on the screen again the scorecard of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach Donald Trump. On the right of your screen there, you see 5 who either decided not to run for re-election or who lost their primaries. My question as we go through the next 5, if you will, the Cheney primary later this month, 3 today, so there's 4 left. The 1 has already advanced to the general election, and the 4 left. Do we see any evidence that the January 6th hearings and Trump's reemergence have changed? Do those candidates, can Cheney survive? Can the 3 today survive? Are Republicans maybe having second thoughts about this is one of the questions.
Yeah, that's one of the things. We've all been writing about Trump's grip on the party with his primaries, right? And so now is where the rubber really hits the road. Now that we had the public January 6th hearings, we saw some damage to Trump's reputation and brand with some of those damning revelations that came out. And so we'll see whether or not there's a future for Republicans that oppose Trump in this Republican Party going forward.
Candidates in Washington state may be better poised. Michigan's going to be very tough for Peter Meyer.
Right, that's a tough district. It's a conservative district, and I mean, not a ton of polling out of Wyoming, but it's not been good for Liz Cheney so far, but we will see. That's why we count votes, and we will be counting them tonight.